Silence can be deadly, and secrets even deadlier. The quiet exposes the dark truths hidden behind closed doors, truths that will leave you speechless.
Hey folks, Mahi here. Heads up, there are spoilers ahead, so grab your snacks and let's dive into today's story.
Dot is a deaf and mute high school girl. Because of her disability, she hardly has any friends and is always alone. After the recent death of a single father, her godmother's family has been taking care of her. Her new god, Sister Nina, is not accustomed to having a sister and hates that for no reason. The two go to the same school where Dot is a social outcast. Nina and her group of mean cheerleaders make fun of Dot's disability. The school's guidance counselor sees this and asks Dot to join her table for lunch. Dot refuses and runs to her favorite spot in the school, a bathroom stall. She feels safe and much less lonely when she is alone. Her happiness doesn't last long though, because Nina finds her and angrily pulls her out for the ride home. Nina's mother, Olivia, encourages her daughter to make her feel at home, but Nina cannot care less, since it wasn't her decision to take her and she doesn't feel responsible to do any favors. In the evening, Nina's father, Paul, arrives home and finds Olivia passed out in the living room. She has a drinking problem and suffers from depression because she's on several antidepressants. Paul takes care of her and gets her to bed. On returning back to the dinner table, he notices an awkward silence between the girls to cut the tension. He suggests they learn sign language for Dad, but Nina cuts him off and walks away. The following day, during lunch, Nina and her friends are gossiping as usual. Her friend Michelle brings up the topic of virginity and makes fun of Nina for being a 17-year-old virgin. She can have any guy she wants, but is reserved when it comes to dating. Meanwhile, Dart comes across the school's empty music room and takes the opportunity to play piano. She used to practice when she was still hearing, hence she plays pretty well, even without hearing the music. One of the popular guys, Connor, hears her play and is instantly smitten by her. He stares at her for a long time before pulling away when his friend interrupts. Later meets Nina in the washroom. She tries to mind her own business, but Nina forcefully makes her wear lipstick just when she thinks that this might be a bonding moment for them. She looks into the mirror and discovers that Nina purposely smeared lipstick around her lips. That night, Dot has a hard time falling asleep because she misses her father. When she steps outside to get some fresh air, she notices Nina's bedroom door is open. Peeking inside, she sees Nina and her father, Paul, together in bed. The sight disturbs her to her core, and she runs straight back to her room. No jokes about this scene. It's as unsettling as it sounds. The next day at dinner, Nina asks her parents for permission to spend the night at Michelle's. Paul refuses, but Olivia encourages her to go. When Paul remains adamant, Nina rubs her foot up his leg under the table, trying to seduce him into letting her go. He doesn't say anything, which she takes as a yes, and she immediately calls Michelle. Paul is furious with Olivia for always contradicting him. They have a brief argument before he storms off. When Olivia is alone, Dot hands her a note asking if she can go to the movies. Paul offers to drive her there, and Dot reluctantly agrees, despite feeling uncomfortable. The movie theater is nearly empty, except for Nina and her squad sitting in the middle row. Connor notices Dot sitting alone and wants to approach her, but his friends stop him. Nina feels a twinge of guilt for Dot but keeps up the act that she doesn't care. Dot catches Nina closing her ears, seemingly trying to experience what it feels like to be deaf. Nina stops abruptly when she notices Dot staring at her. Later that night, Dot stays awake, replaying her last encounter with Nina in her mind. Suddenly, she notices Paul coming downstairs. Pretending to be asleep, she feels him stroke her hair as he mutters, calling himself sick. It's clear he knows what he's doing with Nina is wrong, but he feels unable to stop. He had agreed to take Dot in, hoping her presence might deter him from going into Nina's room, but it hasn't worked. In the following scene, Dot is home alone, playing the piano. Unbeknownst to her, Nina arrives home from school and watches her from the doorway. Suddenly, a piano wire snaps, and Dot curses out loud. Shit! Nina freezes in shock, realizing Dot could hear them all along. She pretends she has just gotten home and doesn't confront Dot about the lie. The next day at lunch, Nina sits with Dot for the first time. Dot looks at her in confusion as Nina begins sharing intimate details about her private moments with her father. It's clear Nina is trying to provoke a reaction, but Dot remains calm. Before leaving, Nina casually mentions that she plans to use Michelle's gun to kill Paul that night. Dot still doesn't give Nina the attention she craves, but is afraid Nina might be telling the truth. To clear her mind, she heads to the music room to play the piano. This time, she notices Connor staring at her through the door. Nervous, she tries to leave, but Connor stops her. He asks her out on a date to work on a lab report together. His plan backfires when she shows him the already completed report. That night, the family is enjoying dinner when Connor unexpectedly knocks at the door, surprising everyone. He asks Dot to meet him at the library to go over the lab report. She reluctantly agrees. Just then, Michelle arrives and hands a bag to Nina. Dot remembers Nina mentioning Michelle's gun and grows anxious, fearing she might actually be planning to kill Paul. In the next scene, Dot and Connor are at a diner. He talks about the lab report briefly, but then confesses his feelings for her, thinking she cannot hear him. He shares intimate details about how he imagines being with her. Suddenly, Dot notices an ambulance heading toward her house and assumes Nina has done something terrible. She rushes home, relieved to find everyone safe. Later, Dot walks toward Nina's room and overhears Paul undressing her. Nina sounds exhausted and disgusted by her father's behavior. To help her, Dot deliberately breaks a statue, interrupting the commotion and forcing Paul to return to his room. Nina is left crying in her bed. Dot slips into bed beside her and holds her as she falls asleep. In the following scene, Nina is ironing her cheer uniform while talking to Dot. She promises to kill Paul that night with the iron and burns the face of a teddy bear for emphasis. Dot still believes Nina doesn't know she can hear, so she pretends not to have heard the plan. Later that day, Nina and Michelle cheer for the school's basketball team. Connor, who is on the team, performs poorly and is benched within minutes. After the game, Connor and Dot spend time together by the pool. Thinking she cannot hear him, Connor talks about his personal life. Suddenly, Dot removes her top, and the two share an intimate moment by the pool. Meanwhile, at home, Olivia suggests that Nina and Connor would make a great couple. The comment enrages Paul, who accuses Olivia of making Nina dress provocatively. As they argue, Olivia undresses and invites Paul to bed, but he rejects her, no longer attracted to her. She's not a teenager after all. Nina returns home at midnight, exhausted from cheering all day. Paul gives her a handbag as a gift and makes advances toward her. Olivia, awake in her bedroom, seems aware of what's happening but does nothing to stop it. Nina asks Paul to close his eyes, claiming she has a surprise for him. As he complies, she approaches him with a hot iron, seconds away from burning his face. At that moment, Dot returns home, interrupting them. Nina pulls back and, in a shocking twist, claims she is pregnant. Paul is horrified at the thought of fathering his own grandchild. When Nina asks him for $1,000 for an abortion, he agrees to give her the money the next day. Later, Nina confesses to Dot that she wasn't brave enough to kill him. The next day is the school dance. Nina borrows a dress for the night, and as the girls get ready, she reveals that she lied about being pregnant. In truth, she plans to take the $1,000 and run away to a different state, hoping to start fresh as a stripper and earn a lot of money. After her confession, she applies lipstick to Dot, this time without making her look like a clown. Later, Paul is searching for Nina when he finds tampons in her bag. Since Nina had claimed she hadn't gotten her period in 6 weeks, this discovery confirms his suspicions that she's lying about the pregnancy. Paul confronts her, showing her the tampons, and demands the truth. Nina attempts to fabricate another lie, but Paul doesn't believe her. He becomes violent, slapping her and trying to overpower her. Olivia hears Nina's cries but once again does nothing to intervene. Dot also hears the commotion, stops playing the piano, and takes matters into her own hands. She rips out a piano wire, marches to the bedroom, and uses it to strangle Paul while screaming for him to leave Nina alone. Moments later, Paul collapses, lifeless on the ground. Nina, still in shock, curses Dot for killing her father. When Olivia comes upstairs, she is more astonished by the fact that Dot can speak than by the sight of her husband's lifeless body. Meanwhile, Michelle arrives at the house to pick the girls up for the school dance. The girls quickly change into clean clothes, stashing their bloodied ones in a bag. They leave for the dance, trying to act as if everything is normal. At the school dance, Dot is with Connor but remains distracted. Meanwhile, Nina takes the backpack, hides in a bathroom stall, and waits for the party to end. Back at home, Olivia sits by Paul's body, lost in thought. Her expression reveals that she had long since fallen out of love with him. The only regret she feels is her inability to protect her daughter from such a monster. Elsewhere at the party, Connor calls out to Dot as she's leaving. When she turns around, he realizes she can actually hear. He's stunned by this revelation and, feeling betrayed, accuses her of violating his trust. Dot tries to explain, but Connor dismisses her, unwilling to give her the chance. Dot refocuses on more pressing matters. She retrieves Nina from the bathroom, and together they head to a nearby creek. They bury the backpack containing the bloodied clothes, planning to dispose of Paul's body later. When Nina asks Dot why she pretended to be deaf all this time, Dot explains that she wanted to honor her father, who was also deaf and mute. Upon returning home, the girls are greeted by a shocking scene. The house is surrounded by police, and Olivia is being escorted out in handcuffs. When the girls ask what happened, Olivia claims she killed Paul. She also apologizes to Nina for everything. Though Nina understands the true meaning behind her apology, it's not just for Paul's death. In the final scene, the girls watch as the police car takes Olivia away. Nina reflects that the punishment would have been far less severe if she or Dot had taken responsibility. So that's it. If you enjoyed this movie, share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to check out the recommended movie on your screen right now. Watch it and join Mahi's movie recaps.